Okay, everybody, thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate you being here. We have as you can see, a high energy town hall for you tonight. We are joined by Rich Brundige from Camp Kids Are Kids Chicago, Dina Dattilio from Camp Ta-Kum-Ta, and Ashley Klinger from Camp Hobé. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Rich.
We are super excited, y'all, to be here tonight, and we actually have an opening talk for you all. Are you ready for this? Pull up close. Make sure your sunglasses are on because this is gonna get real bright. And if you're not rocking the summer gear, go find it. Because it could be any season, winter, spring, summer, or fall. And if anyone else wants to add, all you gotta do is call. Just let me know.
Or any place, at home, in the hospital, or on the road.
Or any state, province, or country, for that matter. We hope all of us have camp in our hearts all the time.
And that's why we think virtual camp is so important.
It's for those campers and families who are new and want to learn more about summer camp, or to help them connect throughout the whole year.
And it's simply for those who miss those camp feels and those who might not be able to make it to an in-person program.
No matter what time of the year it might be. Oh, then it's disappeared, Dina. It's so good. Finish it off. We all have camp in our hearts.
All right, thank you guys. So let's jump right into it. First question, what are some activities that you've offered that worked really well virtually?
Such a great question there, Ryan. Such a great question. I think for the best practices, we discussed this earlier. All three of us got together and said, hey, you know what really works well? Music. Like music is really, really important to have there to really kind of, have in all parts of camp. You know me, I love to sing camp songs. So we actually incorporated something called the Wheel of Song. You may know it online as the Wheel of Names, and we just put all our camp songs on there. And the best part of the Wheel of Song is that you spin that, and if it lands on a song you really don't like, you don't have to sing that song again. So it just comes off the wheel. You can remove it. And we even use virtual backgrounds and made the lyrics on there so the kids can follow along. And we I love camp songs. So Wheel of Song, we even have a chant. We like Wheel of Song, Wheel of Song, Wheel of Song. And they spin it, and you just got to be ready for whatever comes up next. So all Wheel of Song.
Yeah, so we use music a lot in our programs. We do sing-alongs. We kind of took something out of Rich's playbook and started to do Wheel of Song during some of our programs. It's a great way to kind of keep some of our camp traditions and those traditional camp songs. And the kids love it, and that just adds to the interaction throughout a program. Repeat after me songs, having some of your volunteers that are super high energy, facilitating those, and it really kind of raises the energy in a session with campers. One of the other things we learned throughout the past couple of years, along with many other things, was sometimes during some of our activities, be it crafts, some of our games, sometimes there's some awkward silence that happens. And so having music kind of as a background, whether it's a playlist that we've put together within our camp staff or some of our volunteers, but just kind of having that background music happening kind of keeps that energy up. It adds to the creativity during some of those craft sessions. And you'll find a lot of your campers kind of singing along and bebopping during those sessions. So music definitely is a huge, huge part of camp. So the next kind of thing we kind of came up with during our time was that connection. Connection came up a lot for us. And that's really what camp is all about, is connection and tension. So I'm gonna pass it on to Rich to kind of go over his kind of feeling of connection and what they do.
Yeah, one of our our campers will say it, their favorite part of virtual camp is cabin time. And that's a time for them to have that moment in their smaller groups and connect with their peers and their counselors. They can play games, they can, like play music, they can, our first cabin time, we talk about the cabin rules, and then we just kind of get to know each other. Because even in the main room, when we're doing all this fun stuff, it feels a lot more personal and a lot more connections are made when we hit cabin time. My favorite moments are when the campers get knocked out and come back in and they go, I'm in cabin time, just can you get in here real quick? So they're excited about it. And when they review camp and they say, what's your favorite moment? Cabin time. So cabin time, lots of connections, very intentional connections there.
One thing that we've learned over these last few years with our virtual program is our virtual program, we actually made its own session now because we realized how much of connectivity that can be found through a virtual program. And so even though sometimes it's not everyone's favorite way to connect, we found that it is definitely it's just another version to do that. And so one thing that we're actually doing too is you can still connect to them virtually outside of the summer session. And so tomorrow, actually, we are doing a virtual family game night. We have about 50 kids coming, and so it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. We're just doing a little trivia. I have prizes to give out. We're announcing our theme, which inspired our beach theme here today. And so just kind of coming up with some ideas of activities that really can kind of help them connect, whether it is on that cabin time level or you're reaching out to families and it's on a different level like that. I just love that it can be more than just summer camp too. It's a great way to stay in touch with everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. We had a really great turnout for our game night as well. One of the other activities that was super popular for us was we did a make this night, so crafts, but there was a lot of intentionality behind those crafts. And so we did, I'll use an example, some ceramic crests and a watercolor collage that was had an I am statement. So it kind of gave campers opportunities to connect in that way and share out. And so just seeing the pride that they had as they were sharing those activities and kind of sharing their crest and what they had come up with, whether it be, something about their family or themselves, and then their I am statements in that watercolor collage, and hearing the words that they were using to describe themselves was just so inspiring to hear. It was amazing. And so the kids really interacted during that and encouraged each other, which was great to see.
And Dina, were you going to mention your goose chase as well?
Oh yeah, goose chase. Thanks, Rich. When we were thinking of some additional ways, because we were all so far apart, what was a way for us to come together in a meaningful way? And so we utilized goose chase, which I had first been introduced to at COCA, and have put myself in some situations that were not always comfortable during some of those missions. However, thank you, Rich Brundige. And so we've used it throughout the past 2 years often. And so we just used it again for we just recently did our first in-person kind of thing with campers back. And so utilized goose chase so that families could go to different parts of camp and take photos and upload them. So goose chase, or that type of platform, is really such a great way to kind of bring people together. Lots of good friendly competition, and we all know we all love a little competition. And so seeing another team kind of, getting ahead encourages others to maybe submit some of those missions. But they can be videos, they can be photos. You can have kids share pictures of things that they love about camp. They can share things about themselves, recording things, so introducing themselves. So Goose Chase really kind of brought us all together in different different ways, very meaningfully throughout the past 2 years. So we've used it numerous times throughout the year. So that was a huge piece of our programs.
So we covered music, we covered connection with intention. The third thing we want to talk about here is actually variety. I think our team said different personalities and interests. So you got to know where your campers are and your staff are and kind of like play to that. So for us at Camp Kids Kids Chicago and Camp H-Town and now with the camp show, we do that in different ways. For the big week-long virtual camp, we do a talent show, and that allows our campers and our staff to show off whatever talent they want. They can do it as a cabin skit. They can do, and we've had some really funny cabin skits, and then just individual talents, what these kids pull off that they wouldn't be able to do at camp. I had a camper drive up in his ATV basically, and then just walk off to the Macarena. They're like, you can't do that at camp. So I'm like, well, all right, cool. And it was like all of 5 seconds. I'm like, and there you go. And the best part about that talent show as well is that we had some of that filmed, all that was filmed, but we did it live. So we would show it and then we'd interview them afterwards and ask them how they, how did you come up with that? And give them some of that interaction time there as well. And the other thing that we do is we have a lot of special guests. So in our setup for our virtual program, we have a midday session every day that we have a full day on, and that allows guests that are from wherever they are in the country to come and say hi to our campers. So we've done live sessions at the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago. We've talked to a police officer, a canine police officer in Houston at the airport, and what they do with their bomb sniffing dogs. We've gone to some folks that unbeknownst to us, we thought they had just bats, but no, there was a sloth in a hamper in Pennsylvania. I'm like, cool, this is a thing. This is a thing. So they were able to bring in all different types and variety of guests that we wouldn't have been able to do if we weren't virtual.
And we kind of have done a little similar thing with some of our special guests. We just have had people in the community even approach us and say, we want to do something for camp. What can we do? And virtual has become a great option for that. Last year, our theme for camp was safari, and we had a bird guy come and show all these different birds and all these different animals. And it's kind of like Rich said, you can be really creative because there's a lot of things that you couldn't do in person, and you could show this great stuff. And one thing we did is we still had an opening and closing campfire. And a little bit like Rich too, we kind of had it as a talent show where even we had campers send in any videos of their talents, but then we asked some of them to say, what's your favorite camp song? And they would tell us and say, well, can you get that ready for campfire tonight? And they would take a video of it. And so it could kind of have them lead the song, but not have to do it like live, because that kind of freaked them out a little bit, but they were easier to take a video and then sing along with it. And so we kind of, there's ways that you can kind of play with that a little bit. We really utilized Campfire, and we were able to, what we did was, it was on a Zoom, we had our Campfire leader do the Zoom call, but then we broadcasted it live onto Facebook. So we had a lot of people who actually weren't registered in the virtual session or who still follow our page, from years after. It was really fun because they actually joined in too. So we did our VIP night, we invited VIPs, and we did some special things for them that night to kind of say thank you. But it was really cool to see that it actually reached more than just our little camper population, but it reached out to our donors, it reached out to the families who have, graduated from the program. And so like he said, the variety of it, just to kind of year after year, kind of switch something up and add something new, and it keeps them interested and keeps it, being able to relate to those different personalities and those different interests.
Yeah, we had something similar as well, just some opportunities that we wouldn't have had otherwise. We had a volunteer who had moved back to the Isle of Rota, And so she went to their local nature reserve, and we got to learn about fruit bats during one of our sessions. So those types of things just weren't possible before. And so, you know, what a great thing to have. One of the other things that we did, and we do a lot of talent shows at Ta-Kum-Ta as well. So virtually we thought, what can we have these kids do that they might not be able to do, you know, in person at camp? And so we did something called Express Yourself, and we had them record, or a family member record, a skill or hobby. So the focus was really on a skill or a hobby that they had. So we had somebody build a whole Minecraft based on camp that they showed, somebody riding their dirt bike, somebody tap dancing, for example, and some of our very talented volunteers combined all of those, and we had this amazing video then put together that featured all of the talents and hobbies of our campers, and it was spectacular to see.
So we have two more on this, and I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit because, you know, we're already 15 minutes in, and I feel like I really want to get to those other 5 items. But movement activities are very important to have at camp. I'll tell you this: I don't sit that long. I don't. I have a standing desk, you know, and that's why you see me moving around. And I don't expect our campers to sit that long. I don't expect our staff to sit that long. So we constantly are on the move. We when we got started in the virtual world, I talked to a couple of teachers, and they said 40 minutes is about as long as you want for a session. So we made sure at least one of those sessions was a movement session, whether it would be guests that we would have, like Kids Kicking Cancer, you know, they'll come in and do, you know, martial arts with you. It's awesome. Or we do a dance session, like we did Just Dance this past year. It could be yoga. It's a mindful movement. At least is some sort of movement activity in there when we're doing our rotations at camp. And if it's just too still and too quiet, like I feel like we're a little right now, but we'll get there in a little bit. We'll just throw a random dance party in there. So.
Well, and too, if you ever feel like the kids kind of need to be re-energized, a great way to do that is just say, you know what, guys, let's get moving. Everyone stand up and let's do a camp song. Camp songs are always a great filler activity, or even a dance party. Those are great things. One thing that we did last year at Camp Hobé that I want to mention quick is we did a virtual carnival. It's a huge thing that we do in person. And I was like, how do we kind of maybe create some sort of similar thing in a virtual space? And what we did was, even though they couldn't move around to each different activity, they actually visually did that. So I had a few different pages where they would, as a group, click on an activity. Like in the Camp in the Box, we sent cotton candy, and they watched the video of how that cotton candy was made. And then we'd say, all right, guys, let's get up. And then we'd do this funny running thing. Or you could say, all right, let's move to the next thing. And then we'd get a different page going. So even if they weren't standing up and moving, it's visually moving for them too. So in between some of those things, I mean, to keep them busy, you can kind of just be quick on your feet to be like, you know what, let's get up and pretend we're walking there, or let's play a song, or, you know, something to kind of change up the pace of what's going on.
Yeah, I think, you know, any of those movement things are great, just to kind of get kids up, get moving, refocused. Show and tell is kind of a scavenger hunt type activity. So, and you get to learn about a lot about the kids. You can theme them up. So, you know, asking people like, go find something blue in your room and bring it back, and you know, kids get to share out. So they're getting up, they're getting to refocus. Something else that we did last year, speaking of, you know, special guests, is Tai Chi, which we didn't know how that was going to go, but the campers absolutely loved it. So we had reached out to somebody in our local community. He was thrilled to kind of lead that activity, and the kids really embraced it and had a great time, and it really kind of centered them and refocused, and it got them up and moving. So it was great.
And to kind of piggyback on that one, the last thing we wanted to focus on with these activity ideas were to make sure that they're interactive. A lot of these things that we've mentioned, includes them, getting them either up out of their seat or getting them out of their shell or getting them talking. We felt like as you're planning your activities, it's really important to come up with ways to provide those opportunities to connect and to interact with each other. And obviously that can be like a wide range, right? Like all of these things were interactive, but I think as you go into planning mode, if you think, how can I get them to interact more? How does this activity get them talking with each other? Or how does this activity kind of having that as a mindset when planning some of these things? One thing that we wanted to do to interact more is we found an online platform called Thrively that they were able to interact on a camper type of page where it basically on one side had the social media type of feel, but it was just with our campers. And, we'd have the Zoom call. And then after the Zoom call, we would say, all right, on our Thrively board, there's some activities. And I want to challenge you to do one of them and post something and comment. And so we actually had some interaction going outside of just the events and just the things that we're doing at the camp session or after, that they were able to engage in and interact with each other. So, and Ryan, I think that actually leads us to our next question. You want to go ahead and we'll start there?
Excellent. Okay. So question number 2 then, how do you keep your campers and for that matter, your staff engaged during these virtual sessions?
Such a good question, Ryan. Such a good question.
It is. And it's like the magic question, right? How do we get them excited and engaged during it? And it kind of piggyback off of my previous comment about the interaction. It's really important to get your campers and your staff engaged during those sessions. And I think a way to do that is to prepare your staff for some of those things. The campers, obviously, they're excited to be there, but they may not quite know what to do sometimes. They may be a little shy. They may be new to camp or something, right? And so this is one way to get your campers engaged, is to make sure that your staff knows how to get them engaged, right? So if you prepare your staff by, what we do is we have a shared Google folder for our virtual team that we can share resources. And one thing that I've been trying to put together is a list of questions that if there is that lull time, or if, we're doing arts and crafts, give them an example or an idea to say, if so-and-so's not talking very much, try and engage with them in the chat. Or, if you've noticed that someone's really excited, say, tell us about what you're doing. Kind of, if you help your staff focus on getting the kids engaged, it automatically gets the staff engaged, and then it helps you bring the camp together.
Yeah, and I think, another thing that has come up over the past 2 years is keeping certain age groups engaged specifically. I find our older campers in particular, keeping them engaged and wanting to join sessions has definitely been a challenge at times. And so I think meeting those campers where they are, something that we would never do at in-person camp is, grab our devices and have them out all the time and play video games, and because that's not what in-person camp is about. But this is an opportunity virtually to really meet them where they're at. And so things like playing code names was super popular among us, which was very interesting, but the kids loved it. Things like Pictionary, Scattergories, those really intentional things. They interacted, they were competitive, it provided connection for them. And those games that I mentioned are all things that you can find resources for online. And they were great. It gave them, and they joined throughout the whole weekend. So that was a success for us.
All right, so I'm going to bring in the last point here, which is bringing the camp spirit. And I want to say, Susie, thank you. You put in the chat, brain breaks are also good on YouTube for, the movement activities. So I want to recognize that. I also want to recognize the 3 folks here that are actually on with us beyond Jen and Ryan, who get paid to be on with us. So thanks so much for being present. I'm going to encourage you all to be more present if you would like to. So this is one of the things that we do at camp. We don't want to push everyone to be on camera, but I as the guy who likes to bring the camp spirit, would really encourage you all to kind of bounce on here and play with us a little bit and interact with us. It's okay if you can't, if you're in the middle of eating or doing your hair or, riding a motorcycle. It's all good. We don't want that to happen. But I'm going to flip the switch on DJ AC over here, and I'm going to say, if we're going to bring the camp spirit, I'm feeling right now, I feel like I want a dance break because we've all been like, well, I haven't, but y'all have been sitting for a while, and it is almost at that halfway mark. And what we like to do when we bring in that, that camp energy and that camp spirit, we like to do highlight people as they're dancing and moving. So DJ AC, are you ready to drop some beats? And then and I'm going to show you what I do. Basically, a real quick intermission here. Are you ready?
I am ready. And you know what, Rich? I found the perfect song for us today.
Fantastic.
Since we are beach themed, one thing that we do is, just a preface, sorry. Sometimes when I say to get up and dance, sometimes the kids don't necessarily know what to do. So it's one thing that I like to do is to kind of give them an idea of what to do. So that's what I'm gonna do with you guys. So I thought what we do is, since we're dressed out for the beach, we could do some surfing. So we can surf dance. So I found the perfect one. So I hope you guys enjoy it and love it.
So here's the deal. Ryan's gonna be watching for the best surfer out there right now, and he's gonna highlight that person on there. He's gonna put the spotlight. So get ready, y'all. We're just some little surfing here. Just keep moving. And the best part about surfing indoors is that you don't get wet. So there we go. There we go. Anybody else out there? Anybody else out there? Dina is going full on out, and she's just, I think she's walking like an Egyptian as well as, surfing. Oh, Ashley went under. She went under. I don't know what just happened there.
Good. I'm good. I'm back on the board.
And so I am going to bounce around a little bit here as well. And she's like, yo, you know what we can do? We can always double tap over here and add some spotlights. So, Susie, are you ready? Are you ready for it? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I feel it's like some baby shark going on action here. It's so good. So good. And then I'm gonna add Beverly here. Beverly, I know you know. I know. Yeah, I know. There you go. Oh, and then Ryan, we're gonna add Ryan because he brought some extra to the surf motion right now. All right, Jen and Jen. I think what we're gonna do a quick. This is gonna be so good. So,
this is me drowning because I have no balance.
We're gonna, and then we got. Oh, where did the other Jen go? Jen, where'd you go? Oh no. She walked off. So we have 2 Jens here, and we're gonna do a Jen. This is amazing.
I have zero balance, so I can't surf.
All right. That is fantastic. Let's go back. Thank you so much for that. So I want to say this real quick. When this all started, back like forever ago, it was really only 2 years, but forever ago, I want to say thank you a lot to COCA for bringing in a lot of the outside folks who went right into doing virtual camp and spread the word about what they were doing that worked really well. I want to say thank you to our friends, that went first. And so I watched Camp Hobé's campfires, and I was like, okay, cool. I like what they did there. I think I can do that. And I remember going into the first day of virtual camp and telling Tara, our Zoom queen, I'm like, hey, do you think when we're done here, I want you to tell me who's more ADHD, me or Jack Shot? So it was literally the first thing we said. I hope Jack actually ever watches that, and we can have a contest of who's just more all over the place. But I was like, I think we can. I remember him saying, you need to bring the camp energy. You need to be able to bring that to like the screen and, you know, have that. Not everyone does that. Not everyone has that ability, and that's okay. That's okay. For me, I was ready for this. I was like, yeah, I can't wait. I just want to be on my own TV where no one understands what I'm saying, but they laugh at it anyhow. So that bringing the camp spirit and knowing your role really when you come to camp was very, very important. Which brings us to that next question, Ryan.
So speaking of roles at camp, do you provide staff training for your virtual sessions? And if so, how do you facilitate that training?
Great question. So talking about roles at camp, I would like to point out the many roles that we have at camp and making sure people know their role at camp. For us, a big part of staff training is knowing who's like the producer, who's the MC, what do you do as a counselor, what do you do as a program lead? And those are very specific roles for us. We do a lot of dad jokes at camp. So producer is our actual, like, we had like names. There's so many names. In the beginning, we were using names that we learned, and then we're like, those names don't work for us. They just didn't work. And then we changed it. So we said, hey, the host, the person who's running Zoom, all the tech stuff, that's the producer. And that person is the only one in charge of letting people into the room, right? Is the only one, they're the one in charge of hitting all the videos, you're doing all the music stuff. They're the ones that are setting up the breakout rooms. No one needs to worry about that. So we're very blessed to have Tara as our Zoom queen. And now with the camp show, we have Ross, who's taken care of as the Zoom king, you know, doing all that stuff. We call him DJ Ross. I get to be MC when I'm running the camp show or our virtual camp. So I'm the one on front, you know, I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to keep them all entertained for the first like half hour as they put them all into their Zoom rooms. What I need you to do as the counselors and the program leads is engage on the side with the chat, you know, say hi to them when they come in, make them feel, allow them to feel seen. I'm going to joke around. I'm going to lead some camp songs. I'm going to, you know, bring in as much energy as possible. We're going to do themes. We're going to bring all that. That's not what you don't need to worry about doing that. Your job is interact, and our program leads, they're going to run art. They're going to run STEAM. They're going to run whatever we have for our rotations. Your job as a counselor is when we hit cabin time. The rest of the time, have fun. Be there with the kids. We're going to send you all the same stuff that everyone's getting, all the same gear that all the kids are getting. So we cover that at training. We make sure it's very clear so that they're not worried about, do I need to do this? Do I? Nope. We will send you to the right room. You don't even need to touch a thing. And we make sure they know like how to exit the room and all that. So know your role.
And to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Rich said is if they know what's expected, then I think they feel more comfortable in what they're doing and what's going on. And one thing that I think we all use a lot is Zoom, right? That's why one reason we're here. And I think incorporating just a regular Zoom basics into your camp training. We go through it with everyone a little bit because even if they're not necessarily in any of our virtual things, we do a lot of virtual meetings. It's good for them to know how to use it, the expectations we have for that. And one thing that we also do for our staff and for our families we do kind of an onboarding training before our actual camp session. Like I mentioned earlier, we used a different platform, so we wanted to show them how to use it. And what we do is we trained our staff with that and then had them help us show the campers how to use it. So I think that, you know, they always say you learn best by you know, teaching it yourself. And so that's one thing that we tried to do is include those Zoom basics, include any sort of platform or a special thing you might use, and have them help you show other people. That's kind of been a good addition for us.
I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on that as well and say we actually created a Zoom basics like format for our training. So this is what we want to cover. And now that as we head into, I feel like it's our like our 8th virtual camp training. We're like, hey, I'm kind of done doing that. And we used to be, myself and Tara, when we go through it and we're like, okay, we got it. Then we asked some of our staff to lead it, so it wasn't the same voices talking, like you would do in regular staff training. Like, I don't want to be the only talking head here. They're tired of listening to my voice, so let's change it up. And now we just decided today at the camp show that we're going to create a video, and it's going to go over all the Zoom basics. We're going to have some of our staff lead that. And then we'll have like a quiz that we can add to our training, a pre-training portion, and along with like the background check and the mandated reporter. Now we have Zoom basics. And then at actual training, which by the way is about 4 hours long. It's not long enough, but it's 4 hours. And during that time, we have like a lunch break. We put it right in the middle of the day so that you have 10 minutes to go get some food. And when you come back, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes in your cabin with your co-counselors, going over things about, learning about each other and going over more about the campers that are in your cabin. So that for us, team building is a huge part about training, and we add team building throughout and really build that connection with our staff with each other by having that like lunch meet and making sure everyone has in their main contact list that we share with everyone, each other's phone numbers and emails, because they probably will text each other and never email each other. So, but we put it in there just because.
There you go. And as always, whether in person or virtually, safety is always number one. So, reviewing safety and expectations with volunteers online is hugely important. That rule of 3 always, never being alone in a room or in a space with a camper, that still holds true in this type of platform. So teaching that, we always record our sessions, just preparing people to, when they're planning a program, be sure that you're being realistic and safe. Don't have campers piling things on top of each other and then, jumping on top of it. That is not safe. Backgrounds, whether they're virtual or if they're not able to use a virtual background, is there alcohol in your on the shelf behind you? Anything like that. Being very aware of what is in your space and what those campers might be seeing. And, reminding volunteers that we normally are not going into these campers' homes. And so we are going into their homes during these sessions and reminding them that we're mandatory reporters. And if anything should happen that is, kind of doesn't feel right, doesn't sound right, that we have a responsibility to report that. Appropriate dress. We have found, camera angles during these sessions can be a little interesting sometimes. And so really reminding people to dress appropriately, and, the alcohol t-shirt or a cigarette brand or anything like that is just not appropriate in these sessions. And so reminding them that, no contact with campers outside of these sessions as well, and just discouraging that type of interaction. And so those types of safety measures and more are important to review with your volunteers, with your program teams.
And one big part that we have found that helps during our training sessions for virtual is I've found myself, and I'm sure you guys have found yourselves in the same situation, where you have to explain to them why virtual camp is important. Now that some COVID restrictions are starting to lift in certain places, I've had a lot of people say, like, well, why do we keep doing this? Like, wasn't it kind of just a filler? And it's been a really great opportunity for me to explain to a lot of our community and our families and a lot of our staff mostly ask this question. It's nice to teach them that, one thing we've learned through this pandemic is there's this other fantastic option connect these campers together. I mean, Rich made a whole camp show about it, right? Like there's ways, it's not replacing in-person camp. We tell them we're just expanding it. We're making something more. And I think that one thing that I like to do with my staff on site is I show them this video that we've made with one of our camper families. And they explain kind of why camp's important, why we need the volunteers there, why should these volunteers give up their time to give to these kids. And so we've changed that a little bit, and I don't know necessarily what the future holds with virtual camp, but we saw how important it was to show our staff the why. And so I think it's very important that as you're training them for these virtual things, tell them why we're doing it, why we're here, that we can grow, we can reach to those families who are in the hospital, or reach to those families who are a little nervous about camp. Like this is such a great opportunity to use and to expand our wonderful programs that we have to camp. So I think kind of coming up with a creative way that attends, to your camp and what you do to say, this is why we are doing this. This is our why. Please join us. We'd love to have you, type of thing.
Dina, do you want to jump in on that as well? No, you good?
I think Ashley nailed it. Thank you.
I'll add just one more thing, and the reason why the camp show exists is there are campers out there that may never make it to camp, and we talk about that a lot. I don't know about you all, but we had that year one, and it hit our staff really hard when we discovered like one of our campers that was so full of energy died before our next session, and we hope that all our campers will be able to make it to camp, but that we don't know that, and so that's why we do the virtual programs, and that's why the camp show exists for that main reason. Is we're reaching out to the hospitals directly, saying, let's show you what camp is all about. Let's get them connected. They don't need to be isolated, even though they physically may need to be isolated, but they don't have to feel emotionally and psychosocially like isolated. There are folks who understand where they are and are in similar situations. And especially, this is a patient and SIBS program that we're doing. So those SIBS can be like, okay, cool, I'm not the only one here. And camp looks like fun. I want to go to camp. And if we can get them to camp, we'll get them to camp. But virtual camp exists to fill a need that some of us didn't realize we had. And we're going to continue doing it. All right, Ryan, after that nice serious moment that Rich is usually goofy about, we're going to turn to you now to ask us the next question.
No, that was a really powerful point, Rich. Thank you for that. So then we only have 3 questions left. We have about 17 minutes left. So question number 4 then, what helpful tips do you have for facilitating Zoom sessions?
Ooh, so good. I just want to make sure.
Love that.
Yeah, I want to drive or Google Drive this point home. We Ashley didn't get to see that before, so I'm so glad.
It's awesome.
We use Google Drive. We have a shared drive folder, and you think you all heard about it already. That we have one. In fact, the stuff on our shared drive, we have a template for the camp show, and we sent that over to Ryan, and I'm sure between Ryan and Jen, Jennifer, one of y'all will probably get that up onto sort of like shared document. It's all our basics, what we use at training, some of the videos that we've used. We use some funny videos to test whether or not they were paying attention. We call it, what would you do? So those like awkward moments that could happen, like, hey, how would you handle this? That has been a huge help to have all this information ready for our staff. Their points of contact, everything that we use at camp, all that, and we go over that at training, like, this is how you open this up, this is where this all is, and then we'll add things to the shared drive. We also use it in the leadership style, so leadership end, so we can keep track of what's supposed to happen next with schedules. But yeah, if you don't have that and you're not sharing with each other, and then you're like, I don't know what happens next, all that, we have transition videos, it's all there. so we know one spot where we can get it all.
Yeah, we do something very similar, and we found it really helpful just to have one place that people can go and find all the information. Just to reiterate something that Rich shared earlier is having someone, we call it Zoom Ops, they call it Zoom Queen, but kind of a team of 2 or 3 people that really can get into the deep dive from the back end, that have a much deeper knowledge of Zoom and all of its capabilities, and maybe some other technology that would be helpful. But having at least one person on your session that can deal with all of that, sharing screen, audio sharing. So facilitators of programs or program leads can really focus on what they're doing. They can facilitate the activity. They can be engaging campers. They can be keeping an eye on things. And then your Zoom Ops person is worrying about all of those little technical pieces, so that the focus is on the activity. Hugely important. So, and providing a kind of a facilitation guide to your program leads. I think Rich mentioned that earlier, and Ashley as well. Just the more that we can set people up for success and have them be prepared, the better. So that's definitely something that we have done throughout.
And one, just to add a little bit to that, one thing that we make sure that as we are assigning kind of some roles, we have someone always manage the chat box. I think we're all kind of used to that in a lot of these meetings. I just feel like it's really a good way to use it to interact with maybe some of those campers who might be a little bit more shy. But it's really important, especially with campers. I'm sure we've all run into one of these situations where they say, you know, something maybe a little awkward in the chat, or we had a camper who would not stop messaging in the chat, like just one after another for like 10 minutes. And I was like, all right, well, we're going to have to, you know, but someone was watching that. So you assign people those different roles, you know, set those expectations for your team and for even the campers too, right? To say like, you know, we're on Zoom. This is how it's going to work. You know, you do that brief little serious bit and then you jump right in. But as long as everyone kind of knows, you know, what's kind of expected there as you're facilitating some of these things, I think it helps make it run a little smoother.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just letting your volunteers know, or whoever is leading or a part of an activity, kind of who the shyer campers are, who kind of interacts more in the chat, who might not have like the best internet connection, and just having them say to kids, like, you know, it's okay to share your answers in the chat. It's okay to keep your cameras off. And, you know, and Rich said earlier, you know, encouraging kids to kind of interact and maybe open the camera. But I think, you know, the more that we can make kids comfortable in these spaces, we have found that, you know, some of those campers who kind of had their camera off, they were only interacting in the chat, before you know it, their camera's on, they are fully engaged and sharing out. And so, you know, just kind of setting those expectations, I think, you know, all around is hugely important.
Yeah, we're practically almost done with this. I will say, and we're going to close out with like, contact us if you have any questions on it, and maybe there's a Q&A at the end. I don't know, but I'm always surprised at like when people get nervous with virtual camp. We run the camp show. It's a Friday night, Saturday morning, midday, evening, and a Sunday morning, and that's it. We have I think it's like less than 10 hours with the kids basically. And usually that first, we have a after that first session, like post meeting, and people are like, oh, you know, this one was struggling. We couldn't see them. We couldn't hear them. Like, give it some time. Just give it some time. And sure enough, I think I had my favorite moment ever, because I got to be in the cabin this last season and having a camper basically say, we do reflection slides, and we say like, you know, how did you feel at the beginning of camp? How do you feel now at the end? And at the beginning, he said, at the beginning, I was really shy and nervous. And at the end, I got to open up and feel a lot better because of you guys. And I'm like, yeah, there we go. So it was awesome. Ryan, go ahead. We got two questions left and 10 minutes left. I think we can do it.
All right, let's power through it then. Number 5, have you needed to provide a child with technology to access your virtual programs? And if so, how did you go about doing that?
Oh, pick me. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Both for the camp show and also for Camp Kids Against Chicago. We actually went online. There's this amazing thing called Google search. And I'm like, hey, let me find ones that have, that are near where I gotta get a device from. And amazing enough, you tell them who you are and say, hey, we got a nonprofit rate. We'll get it for you. It was less than $100 for a laptop for a week. It also cost me about the same amount for a weekend for a tablet. I don't want to talk about that. However, it was less than $100, and we had families that, we had a family, 3 kids signed up, and they had devices that were kind of old, and they're like, I think we can get 2 of them to work. Is there a way we can help us with the third? I'm like, yeah. And they were able to use that third and actually get the patient who was a little younger to join in with the youngest brother there. And so we had 4 kiddos joining us, and we would have had maybe 2 if we weren't able to do that. So it's important to offer that. And we asked that in our application. We asked them if they have, basically, do you need any help with Zoom? Do you have good Wi-Fi? And do you have enough devices? And so, and then I asked them when I call them and ask again, like, oh yeah, by the way, this. I'm like, oh cool, that wasn't in your application, but let's hook you up. So Rent-A-Center, you can go to Rent-A-Center, by the way, as well. And they also have laptops you can rent for a minimal amount of time. So yeah, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, we surveyed families and asked very similar questions about their internet connection, if they needed, help with devices. And so far, for us, we have not had any issues with that, and everybody's been okay with joining. So no need, but that's really great info, Rich.
You're welcome.
All right, so then let's go to the home stretch here. Do you offer virtual programs for children in the hospitals? And if so, how do those programs work?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm gonna go again. So yes, so we offered our programming to the hospitals during our summer weeks, and then we started doing it during the weekends as well. We have a really good connection to our child life team at the hospitals. They are what our buddy Tristan from Camp Bring It On calls our floor warriors, and they will advocate for camp and talk about why it's important. And we say, hey, how many camp kits do you need? And we'll send you a box. Some of them don't use any. Some of them will use like all of them. Some of them will use all of them even after camp is done, and then we send them a lovely little guide on what to use and how to use the items inside in case the kiddo couldn't attend camp. But yeah, it's huge. And that's a big part of what we're doing, again, with the camp show, connecting to those hospitals, reaching out to more. I'll just do a selfish plug here again and say, we are a collaborative effort with a whole bunch of other COCA member camps. And Jen's here from What You Want to Do in Indiana. And she knocked it out of the park with her hospital connections. And Jen, what do we get, like 5 kids, 6 kids from 2 different hospitals, thanks to you?
I think so, yeah. It was close to that.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Deb from iHope came and joined our group as well. And it was like the same amount of kids came from the 2 hospitals that she's down and associated with. Tristan works at a hospital, so it's like super cool. And reaching out to our COCA friends, we had Camp Sanguinity, Cook's Children's Hospital, their child life, like, yeah, that sounds cool. They put it out there. And I'll just keep on plugging away to as many hospitals as possible and say, it's a free program. It's a free program. You don't have to do anything. We'll give you the camp kits. We'll give you the Zoom links. We'll give you a sheet that, just print it out. And here's a flyer. There's a QR code on it so they can do the application. You don't have to do it. It's like 5 pages. That's it. It's at least a third smaller than our normal application. They can figure this out. It's awesome. And we'll even give you a printout that says I'm Zooming with camp that they can put on their windows during their time at the hospital, just in case they have any, patient doctor confidentiality situations, we don't want to break HIPAA. So like, hey, knock before you enter. I'll put myself on mute or take my camera down. And we have had kids zooming in from the hospital, and it are kids that just left the hospital, kids that sign up the day of and got their camp kit. And it's so awesome because we would have missed them. So yeah. So yes. Oh, last one, sorry. Child life specialists. If you don't use them for your camp, if you haven't reached out to them, that's how we're working really hard on getting even staff. Talked today to a online practicum group led by Belinda, and anyone here that's in the child life world would know Belinda Hammond very well. I got a chance to describe all the stuff that I said here today with the camp show and Camp Kids Get Chicago and Camp H-Town, and they have an online practicum happening right now. And they said anyone that signs up for the camp show, you get hours because they need a lot of hours. So it's cool. And the best part is you get those folks connected in the virtual world, no matter where they are. And when they go to the hospital, they plug away the importance of camp. So it doesn't matter what camp is nearby. I'm just excited to show them camp.
Yep, that's great, Rich. We have not had success as far as any of our campers being inpatient, taking part like live on Zoom, but Morgan, who's on this call right now, and I kind of teamed up and we've put together some welcome packets for campers to include, always some camp swag and a lot of activities, and just a great intro to camp so that they can kind of get an idea. We've put one of our yearbooks in there, and they can kind of take part in the activities at their own pace as an intro to camp. So we keep plugging away and reaching out to our social worker. And so, hopefully we'll get in there at some point and be able to really connect in that way with some of our campers who may be inpatient.
I want to recognize I'm terrible at reading chat while I'm like running my mouth. So thanks, Jen, for the hotspot with Xfinity. That's awesome. We did worry about like little people have Wi-Fi depending on where they are. And sometimes even in the hospital Wi-Fi is no bueno. Like, wow. Even the child life say, don't get on that one. Just use your data. I'm like, cool. And Susie, again, with talking about getting some great donors to buy some iPads so they can put out as loaners. How awesome is that? Yeah, seeing them participate from the hospital is awesome. So I saw it. Just want to say I saw it. Thank you.
And most hospitals have separate Wi-Fi for kids too, for doing school when the hospital Wi-Fi sucks. So yeah.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so we're coming down to the end here. I just want to thank Rich, Dina, and Ashley again for certainly the most themed, most coordinated town hall that we've offered in 2022 by far. So if the three of you wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the chat, please, and then does anyone have any questions that they would love answered in person, virtually right now? If not, they're putting their contact information there. Please feel free to reach out to them.
I have one question. And I don't know, Rich, maybe you might have some insight on this because you're probably going to plan something similar that we're going to plan. But for kids who have passed away, how do you go about doing online, like memorial ceremonies, bereavement stuff? Like I've done things with kids, but I feel like it wasn't that same connection that we do when we're in person.
I actually don't have a good answer to that. We have developed a good email that goes out to our families.
I just saw yours.
Yeah, our camper farewell. I believe I may have stole that from Dina at some point, like making sure they knew the title of what was coming. And we haven't figured out a good way to honor those that we have lost virtually. We do stuff online and in person, but not virtually. It's that odd spot where we are not sure how we can offer the mesh that we want to have in place for our campers and their questions, especially when we have families who may not share that information with their kiddos. So I don't have one yet.
Can I add a little comment in there? So one thing that we do at our camp, and we do this in person as well too, we have a remembering program where it gives the campers an opportunity to express something that they lost, whether it was like a fellow camper that wasn't able to come back, whether it was a sibling. We even have kids say, when they've lost their pets, or, other family members not related to cancer. And so when we were trying to figure out how to do that in a virtual space, one of our activity leaders found these seeds on Etsy that they're heart. So they're like in a tissue heart, and then the seeds inside of it. And I can send you the link, Jen, if you want to look at that. And so what we did was we call it Hobé Forever. And so what we did virtually was in the camper box, we gave each of them those the seeds, along with the song that we usually sing at camp about connecting throughout the years. And then we gave them an opportunity. We just did an activity for it, right? It's, we're doing our Hobé Forever activity. And we prepped the parents about why we do that, how we do that, and what day we would do that in case they wanted to, be there. We made sure the person who leads the activity is a child life specialist and had extra volunteers that in case a camper was having a hard time, we could go into a breakout room and kind of, help them deal with some of those emotions. It's been a really good program that we've seen be able to kind of both do in person and virtual, just because in our tradition of planting the flower, but just kind of phrase it as a remembering program to share. And it's actually another way to connect with each other. That's such a big part of our camp in person that we're able to find it that way. And the seeds, the heart seeds are actually really cool. So I can send you those, Jen, if you.
Yeah, I dropped my email in the chat. That would be great. It was just so hard to find something that was meaningful yet, because like we do lanterns in person, but it's how do you find a replacement that's meaningful to kids, when you're on Zoom and doing all that. So I really like that seed idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll quickly, because we generally invite our families of the campers that we have lost to camp. So what we ended up doing is sending the letter that we typically do, explaining that, we would be doing it differently. I ordered candles from Yankee Candle and customized them with a photo of our memorial garden. And we kind of utilized social media to just ask people. We usually do our celebration of life on a Tuesday at 3:30. So on Tuesday at 3:30, we asked people to light a candle in remembrance and to share on social media. We just didn't feel some of our, we all have these campers that just don't have a great support system at home. And so to hold something like you said, Jen, to, have something and just not know what their support system is and what that looks like. We just didn't, for us, it didn't work. And so that was just a way to have everybody light a candle and to be able to share their candle and maybe a little something, in the comment on our Facebook page. And that's worked well. I have to say, and we actually had families that had not kind of come on site during that time that actually shared a picture of their candle lit with a little note. So that worked well for us.
Thank you.
And Beverly put a thing in there about the beads of courage and their butterfly bead for bereaved families.
Great.
Thanks, Beverly.
All right, so again, thank you, Rich, Dina, and Ashley for such a great presentation. Everybody, their contact information is in the chat. but we'll be back on Monday at 8 o'clock for the second edition of Dr. Rafi and Dr. Dubé giving us the current update and state of the pandemic. All right, so hopefully we'll see everybody Monday.
Right, and I want to
Thank you,
just
guys.
make sure we got it right. It's Rich, Ashley, and Dina, so that you know that we're rad. We're rad. Just saying.
Get rad.
Great job. Thank you.
Guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.